said, man, I gotta leave here. He said, I can write a book on you. I said, here it is. You ask the question, I'll answer them.
Well, this should take about an hour and a half.
Uh-huh.
Hello, today is December 8th, 1994. My name is Dan Cruz, and I am working with the Illinois Historical Society in a statewide effort to collect oral histories from Illinois citizens that participated in the events surrounding World War II. We are in the home of Verner Adams, who lives in, what's your address, Verner?
909 South 10.
That's Marshall, Illinois. And Mr. Adams is an ex-prisoner of war of World War II, and we're going to interview him about those experiences of 50 years ago. Verner, please start by introducing yourself to us and give your full name and the place and date of your birth.
Verner J. Adams, born in Edgar County, that's up Rail Bridge, May the 6th, 1924.
We would also like to have the names of each of your parents.
My dad was named Fred V. Adams, and my mother was Mabel H. Adams.
And did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had two brothers, both in the service. Frank W. Adams was the older brother. Walter F. Adams was my second brother, and I had a sister, Mary.
Mm-hmm. Are there any details about your parents or your family that you would mind sharing at this time? What kind of work was your dad involved in?
My dad worked at the Highland Arms Steel Mill over Terre Haute. He was too young to go into the first, and too old for the second, so he worked all overtime he could to buy war bonds and stuff. But there's three of us boys, and we were all into service.
Right. Verner, what was life like for you before the war? When were you and what had you been doing in school? Were you at school or were you working at the time?
I got out of high school in the spring of '42. And I worked in various jobs up till I went in service and went in service in '43. So I was only active down just about a year out of school. But I worked on the rail gang, on the railroad, I worked in the steel mills, worked construction, worked on farms, and last major job was at the steel mill. I left from there when I went to service.
Well, what thoughts did you have about the war before the United States became directly involved in the conflict?
Well, I really didn't have too much chance to think about it, but I knew my brother was in. All my buddies was going, and I figured I wasn't any better than anybody else, and I'd sure rather to keep it over there than to have the people here to do the suffering.
Did you hear the December 7th, 1941 radio announcement about the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
No, really I didn't.
What were you doing at the time, and how did you find out about the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
Let's see, December 7th, I was still in school, I think. That was 41, wasn't
41.
it? Yeah, I was still in school.
So that would have been...
I heard it over the news or something. Somebody come in and said it and passed the information on.
What was the reaction and the response of those around you, your friends and those you were going to school with, and family members?
Well, they all got kind of shook up because they know that there's going to be a bunch of us going to go to service, and they didn't like it.
Now, did you have any relatives at this time in the military?
My brother was in there.
Okay, and where was he at?
He was in Pearl Harbor.
When the attack was going on?
Yes.
Is that right?
He was down there from Ford. He quit in the fall, his last year of high school. Got mad about something, you know how young guys do. Well, I can't drive the car, I can't do this. So he got teed off and he went and joined up the regular army. He went down to Florida and they shipped him right down to Hawaii. That's where it was at. And he was down there when that took place.
Where was he stationed at?
Now I couldn't tell you what the camp is, but he's right around Pearl Harbor, whatever that place is.
Mm-hmm.
That was their headquarters.
Had you formed any prior opinion or developed any feelings about what had taken place either in Europe or Asia before the attack?
Really hadn't, because I didn't have time. I was in school, you know, and younger kids, they don't think too much about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's when that bombing took place, but then everybody got thinking, well, I'm going to go to the Army, go to the Navy or something. In fact, I did take off one time, skipped school. I went to Indianapolis, tried to get in the Army Air Force. But at the time, I wasn't sharp enough to get in there.
What events led up to your entry into military service?
What led up to
Yeah,
it?
what led up to it? When did you go in?
I went in March of 43.
43?
I'd just been out of school just about a year and worked all those jobs. Really didn't have a chance to grow up or do anything.
Yeah. Where were you inducted?
Went to Camp Grant by Chicago.
And then what happened after you were inducted? Where were you sent?
Stayed up there, I think, 2 days. They said something about giving us a pass, but it didn't work because they shipped me out the next day.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And how old were you when you went into the military?
Let's see, I was 19, I think. Right?
And where did you take your basic military training at?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, down in the Ozarks.
And this is for the Army, is that
Yeah.
right? Okay. And what were you trained to do?
I was a rifle company, infantry. I was squad leader.
Squad leader.
Yeah.
What types of weapons were you trained to use?
M1, carbine, 45 pistol, machine gun, 1350 caliber, and 60 mortars. That's what I had the weapon platoon, the 60 mortar section. And I was in no other, all grenades, hand grenades and all that stuff. Of course you had grenades go on the rifle too. And went through obstacle courses.
Well, what did you think of the training while you were going through it?
Well, it was supposed to be so many weeks, but our so many weeks turned out to be shorter. I could cut us short about 5 weeks on training. Then we went on maneuvers, bivouacs, out camping out in the hills and
It was still in
snow.
Missouri?
Huh?
Still in Missouri?
Yeah. But we left there and then we went on maneuvers down in Texas and Louisiana, down around Camp Oak, Louisiana. Then we left there after we went through the maneuvers and went to Camp Breckenridge, Kentucky. That was another Army camp. And I left them there as a replacement and went over.
Okay. Well, let's talk about this. When did you leave the States and where did you go when you went overseas?
Well, I should have said that basic training is all in the 75th Division. Company B, 290th Regiment, 75th Division. This 2nd Battalion, yeah. And then after that, I left Camp Breckenridge. Now I'm going on, moving on the way. They sent me to Fort Meade, Maryland. There we draw your uniforms for wherever you're going. For the first deal, I drawed khakis. That's the summer uniform. I said, oh, that's for the jungles or South Pacific. I said, I don't believe I want that. But there wasn't nothing I could do about it. Next day they called me in. They changed, gave me the winter uniforms. I said, oh, Europe was bound, and that's where I went. But they sent me from there to, see, can't believe it, they called it Camp Miles Standage. That's up around Boston, Massachusetts. I stayed there a few days, and then we left out of there, crossed.
Via ship?
Yeah.
What was the date in which, do you remember the date you left the United States?
Must have been about early spring. I don't know, long about March or April. It was the largest convoy that ever went across.
Well, this is 1944.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where were you sent? You were sent to England?
I went to Southampton. That's in Port of England. But there, I was in Scotland, Ireland, Wales, walked all over that country as training, but we were all just replacements.
Where were you on June 6, 1944, during the invasion of Europe?
Invasion of Europe, I was loaded on the ship to cross the channel.
Okay, so you participated in the D-Day invasion?
No.
No, okay.
We couldn't get across, the channel was blocked. See, I loaded 3 times that day, and I don't know how many days later, but just a few days later, across the wind. It was hot on the beach when we landed. You had to run, I don't know how many miles in before you get covered. But this looked like a burning junkyard.
What division were you assigned with once you?
4th Infantry Division.
4th Infantry Division. Okay.
As soon as I got in there, 4th Infantry Division. Had the mortar squad, or mortar section.
Well, explain to me, once you landed into France, some of the activities that happened or that you encountered. There was still quite a bit of action going on in France.
Quite a bit. All the action was going on. Shelling, blowing up, shooting.
Now, do you remember what the date when you landed in France?
I don't remember just what day, but it's just very few days after D-Day.
Okay.
Because our troops were just in a short ways. And they sent me this 4th Division, Company 12th Regiment.
Which company?
Company E,
Company E.
12th Regiment, 4th Division.
Tell me what your reaction was when you arrived in your first combat situation, your first, the first area. It had to be completely different from training or anything like that.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You learned right quick what to do. It's either you or somebody else, or you learned to take cover, dig holes, or whatever you had to do to survive. And then you'd see a guy laying there shot, one over here, wounded, and all that. Just seemed like there was a cloud of smoke in the air all the time. Different smell.
Do you remember any of the names of the towns in which you went through when you were over in France?
Oh yeah, I fought through Paris, St. Lo. Of course, I just about have to look at a map and track the where you've been. There's 5 major battle zones, and I was in all of them.
Can you list those for me?
No, I don't know how they were set off.
Okay.
But I know I participated in on them because I got a silver star for 5 battle zones.
Is that right?
Silver star on my green ribbon there. Yeah.
Do you recall what your emotions or thoughts were at the time about your involvement in the war? Sometimes that's, you said you had to learn real fast.
You learn fast, and you're scared. Anybody says they wasn't scared, I say they've not been there.
What was what was it like your first situation when you encountered the enemy? Do you remember seeing them? Do you remember, did you know they were there, or did you wander upon them?
Sure, I knew they was there. You could hear them. You could smell them. They had a smell of their own. People laugh at you, but they do.
You're the second veteran that I talked with that said that there was a smell to the enemy.
That's right. And I was also in some of the old World War I trenches. I had my mortar set up, and I looked at that, and I was like, what the heck, this looks kind of odd. And I got to ask some questions. Somebody said, well, this is one of the World War I trenches, where they dug them out around the hillside, for protection. They look out over where they're checking the enemy out. It kind of filled in, but it's just a deep, grassy ditch. And I knew that wasn't natural, and that's what it was.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Explain to me the events that led up to your capture by the Germans. And when were you captured? What was the date?
December the 20th, 45.
44. That would have been Battle of the Bulge then?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
44.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
before
because much stuff happened during the short time.
Sure. Well, before we talk about December, because there were a number of events that happened, from D-Day, from June through December, the Battle of the Bulge. Tell me some of the activities you were involved in.
Okay. We was up in the forest where the pillboxes was. We went up in there to stop the enemy, and we were cut off from about noon one day to about noon the next day. We was pinned down, couldn't move. Well, there's a letter right in here that explains the whole works. I didn't know how many prisoners we had, but I knew there was a bunch of them.
So you had taken some German prisoners?
Oh, we had 75. But we was laying on the ground, couldn't move, because they had us pinned down. And I didn't know they was that close to me, but I had them laying on the ground in a row, right close to where I was at. And I was at the base of a tree. Every time I moved, somebody'd shoot. And we didn't know whether we were going to get out of there or not. But the next day, we got some information somehow. Everybody stayed down. They were coming in after us. Well, they did come in on the light tanks with machine gun fire, and they just sprayed the whole area. Well, when they got up and got around us, I didn't have seen what was there. They couldn't believe it.
So the Germans were coming up to you, and you had some German POWs with you.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So so what happened as the tanks got closer to you?
They got in there and they chased them others out. They was hitting wood piles and everything else. I've never seen so many Germans come out of wood piles and out behind trees. And of course, some of them's in them pillboxes.
Mm-hmm.
They shot one of our guys in the head. I do know that. That's just one of many things that happened.
And so that's where you were captured?
No.
Oh, no, okay.
Oh, no, I
Okay.
never got captured a good while after that.
Okay, well explain to me what
Well,
happened.
we just went from one place to the other. Our company was a frontline company.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go break through and take the ground, and some other outfit would come in and hold it. And they'd move us over to another front. We'd break through somebody else. And that's happened all the way through till there at the last, just before the bulge. And they said, well, you're down to very few men, and we're going to take you to a rest area. Well, they'd load us in trucks and haul us around. After dark, we went in. I said, this is no rest area. And you move after dark and move before daylight. I said, that's not any good.
And where was that area they moved you to?
That was up there where I got captured is in Luxembourg. Of course, it's a village of several little towns. Echternach was the name of the town I was in. I think we had around 40 people left in our company. But 2 over in this building, 2 over here, scattered all over the area. But it's right on the river, and there's a big bluff. There's a house set up on top of the hill. That was our outpost. Of course, I drawed that first night in there. Said, don't move a curtain, don't move nothing. Across the river, I think I counted about 32 pillboxes over there. You could see the smoke curling out of them in the morning. Go up there and watch some field glasses. You see any movement, I called back for some mortar fire. We had 1 mortar, and then just our small arms. That's all we had. And we was holding that town. Well, what they done, they brought in a whole division off the Russian front, and they come around us because they thought there was more people down there than what there was. And then they come in town. They built a bridge across the river behind us that we didn't even know what was going on because we didn't have no contact. We was cut off. They'd run around us and cut us off. They come in there then with tanks firing point blank in the buildings wherever they thought was at, crammed the buildings in on us.
Did you know could you identify what kind of troops these were that you saw? Were they Wehrmacht? Were they...
Well, it had to be a good crack troop because they all had automatic weapons and had them big old German tanks with them 88s on them. It was their last big push, so they put the best in there.
So, and you were at this town when you were captured.
Yeah.
What happened? Tell me about the moments that led up to when you fell into German hands.
Well, I seen they was taking a few of our guys, and I was watching them. I said, if they shoot him, I'm not going out of this building. I was been on guard. I had a Browning 7 machine gun. I don't know whether you knew what they were.
BAR, yeah, sure.
No, it wasn't BAR. It's a little short gun. It fired 45 caliber shells.
Okay.
And it had big long clips on it. It was beautiful. It's to scatter, you know, gunfire or bullets. And so I waited to see what they done. I seen them lining the guys up, and there was like an aircraft gun sitting there on like a half track they had. I thought, well, they haven't shot at anybody yet. And so I buried that gun and everything I had with me. I got rid of it. So I finally went out after the building was about ready to start falling. Got in line, and I thought, well, now what are they going to do? So they had us all lined up there, had pretty well what was left caught. And that guy up there on that, he just lowered that barrel. I said, oh, criminy, I wish I'd stayed in that building. But he didn't pull the trigger. They just moved, and they marched us on past that.
Do they speak English to you at all?
Oh, yeah, they could speak English. A lot of them would take our guys, take their uniform, put them on, then shoot back at us. So naturally, we'd have to quit till we figured out what was going on. They'd done that several times on us.
Did they take anything off of you, any personal effects?
Oh, yeah. First thing, that one of them Germans, that watch. Then the next one took my wedding ring. Well, that's all I had. But they'd told us to never wear any division patches or rank patches or nothing like that. Well, one guy, our outfit had been replaced 4 times, our company. But we had one, he was smart, he left them on. So that's the first thing that officer said. What outfit? What rank? The guy wouldn't tell him that. He said, well, you guys are so smart. He said, so-and-so's on your right, so-and-so's on your left, and we're here, and you're there. We didn't know what was going on. So that was about the end of that. They marched it on and moved us out of there.
Where did they take you?
Took me to that there 4B. Walked us. And I don't know, but I think they said that was Muhlenberg or something like that. It's on this map that I got. I didn't know what all those towns were. I was in so many different towns and everything. And didn't remember what they were. Let's see. I had that out there. There it is. Yeah, it is 4B. Muhlenberg, that's what it is. Muhlenberg. But that 8A I was talking about was clear over in this area somewhere, but we couldn't find it. I thought maybe it might be under this here little insignia.
Well, did you hook up with other American prisoners of war? And how you say there was what was it 16 of you?
I think we had around 42 in our company, but they separated. See, I was a sergeant, and they separated the privates from the non-coms or whatever they call them, and they take them off somewhere else. Now that's the ones they took to work camps, and they separated the officers.
Well, what was the first few hours like of your capture? Maybe or the first few days, what was that like?
Well, you wondered how long he's going to live, wondered where he was going. You didn't have any idea. It's all strange country. And you wondered whether that guy was going to shoot you or not. You had a bunch of guards around you.
Were they young? Were they old? Were they look in pretty good shape?
Oh, yeah, they're in good shape because they've been on the Russian front. But when they got us to camp, most of those were older people. Is either do that or they'd be sent to front line.
Was there interrogation or any abuse that you saw from your captors?
Yeah, I've seen a little bit. If you didn't watch what you're doing, they'd love to rap you with a gun, or if you'd reach down to get something off the ground, they'd love to shoot your hand, put a hole in you. Yeah, but they really didn't do nothing to me because I stayed back and kept an eye on them. I didn't do anything to have them to do it. The only thing they done to me when they stuck that big needle up in my chest, I don't know what that was for. I told them about that VA. I got a needle about that long. They took us into this place, and of course it was in December, snow and all that crap. Took us out of the cold right in and give us a hot shower. And then they shot me that thing. I don't know what the heck's going on here, but you can't do nothing. And they said, never heard of such thing. I said, well, I got it. I don't know whether they've done it to anybody else or not, but I got it. I don't know whether it's an experiment or something, because they's always experimenting on prisoners and Jews and what have you.
How long did it take you from the time you were captured to your first prison camp? How long did it take for them to get you there?
I don't know. Seemed to me like about a day or so.
Now, did you walk the entire time, or did they load you on trucks?
Walk.
I'm not sure about my dates, but had you heard up to this time any of the stories of the American prisoners who were gunned down at Malmedy, by the SS? Was that common knowledge at that time, or did you find out about that later?
Well, you very seldom ever heard anything what was taking place, unless you get some information from one of the guards. I know we started out a big group and we ended up a very small group, but I was also around some the British soldiers too.
How were they treated?
Well, about the same as we was.
And so there's no difference. The Germans didn't treat the British or the Americans any different?
No. They holler that Geneva Conference, but that didn't help us any. We didn't get no help or anything. I never got no mail. I think I got in on 2 Red Cross parcels. They were about that big a square and about like that. And there's 28 on each one of them. So you can imagine what you get out of there. About a teaspoon or a tablespoon full of stuff.
What kind of things would be found in a Red Cross parcel?
It have some sweets and some crackers and some cigarettes and, just a variety of general stuff. Mm-hmm. But them was supposed to have been 1 box per person. But that's the only 2 we ever seen.
Is that right?
But we did find some on the Germans that were guarding us in their packs.
So they were taken with Red Cross parcels?
When we stripped them down, yeah.
Were any of the companions that were with you when you were captured, were any of them sick or wounded?
Oh, we was all sick.
Uh-huh.
I had dysentery so bad I never even kept my britches buttoned up. Just belt where anything went through just came out like water. Yeah. There's a lot of guys sick. Well, in fact, I was I was flat off my back for about 2 or 3 days just before I got liberated. And a couple of guys was helping me around. I wouldn't last another week.
How much? Do you have any idea how much you weighed at the time of your capture?
Oh, no, I really don't, because I was pretty husky. But I know I weighed around 100 pounds when I got out of there.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What was the trip like from the time you were captured to to the prison camp? Did you see a lot of German activity, or were you passing German troop transports going to the front? And the weather, what was that like?
Well, it's just typical old cold, snowy, sloppy weather. And we had no footwear. In fact, I had holes in the bottom of my shoe soles like that. And I tried to tell me my feet didn't get froze or frostbite. And we had no camps, had no heat, and they kept us in old barns at night. They'd stop at night and move out for daylight. You just stuck in an old barn. You'd find a little hay or straw to pull over you. That's all you had. And even that camp that I was in, there was no windows in it, no bathroom facilities, no water, no lights, and they had, well, they called them a bunk, but had 7 little wood straps like that. And all you had for a bed was half of an old wool blanket. So imagine sleeping on something like that.
What was the food like that they served you?
What's that?
What's that? Huh? They didn't serve you any food. Huh?
They had some bread. It's not that big a square, about that long, and it's green. It looks like sawdust. I call it sawdust. You cut it this doughy, gummy, green-looking stuff. Sometimes you get a slice about 1/4 of an inch thick. That lasted you all day, and sometimes 3 days. That was it. And once in a while you get some soup, they call it. I call it grass soup because it looked like you mowed a lawn, boiled it in water.
Describe the physical layout of the camp you were taken to.
It was just a bunch of just old wooden barracks. Well, barracks were fair. None of them had any windows, no heat, no nothing. I don't think they even had a door on them.
Do you remember how many approximate number of prisoners were housed there at the camp?
No, I don't, because they kept moving us around.
To different camps or to the same location within the camp?
Yeah, they'd move you around in that camp, but it had barbed wire and fence around it, and they had them police dogs running around all the time. The guards were walking around it, and they had guard towers.
Could you tell what kind of weapons the guards carried at that time? Were they rifles?
It was rifles, just regular old German rifles. They had machine guns set up too.
So you said you only received 2 Red Cross parcels the entire time you were in the camp.
I distributed part of one.
Part of one.
Like I said, there was about 20 of us on that one.
So it must have been just awful, without a lack of food, with the poor, and the food you did get, it was pretty poor quality.
Hey, I went. I kind of tried to toast a piece of that bread, and the dog came around. I tried to give that dog, and he sniffed out it, and went, and took off running. I said, and they expect us to eat that? Oh.
I'll turn off the recorder just for a moment.
A few years ago, you had got nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Just like they told me up at the hospital. Says here it is 50 years. Says you didn't have time to say anything or talk to anybody. You had to work and raise your family and pay your bills and all that because nobody was taking care of you. And we just wouldn't say anything about it.
Well, I think these things are really important to do, these conversations, because it's, when I was a young kid, I remember stories from World War I veterans, and they were old at that time.
Right.
You know, and they're gone.
Right.
And I think it's very important that we sit down and we talk with you folks who participated in this, because we've heard the stories from either politicians or from generals and all this kind of stuff, but the story of the average, let's say dog-faced foot soldier.
Them kind of people didn't know what to talk about. Yeah.
But what was the sanitation like in the camps at which you lived?
Wherever. Now, that one camp did have an old shack out there with a big pit. There was no toilet paper, no nothing. Just was that pit to dump it in.
Water supply, much of anything or none?
We got most of the water out of the road ditches.
After rain and stuff like that, or snow. Unbelievable. Were there any provisions for washing yourself?
Not hardly.
Were there any provisions for doing laundry?
My clothes were never laundered.
Okay.
Never had a bath.
Were hospital or medical facilities and doctors available?
We didn't even know what that was. None around.
How were sick and wounded men cared for?
Other guys look after them. Their buddies.
Yeah. Did men become sick or injured in the camp?
Oh yeah.
And then you mentioned this earlier. Was there much dysentery?
100%. I told you, I never fastened my breeches. With a drink of water or anything go right to you.
How many, do you know how many men died or got killed within the camp? Was there any escape attempts or anything like that?
Well, yeah, some of them, I know two in particular. I knew when they left, and I happened to see them with another group later on. I kept watching for the two guys. One of them was in my outfit, and they dropped out under a bridge way back down the line. Kept watching for them. They talked to me about it. I said, "You don't know where you're at. You don't know where you're going. You're liable to get shot. You better stay as a group." So they thought to give her a try, and they just wandered around. They found some farm people turned back in, but they did make it back, and close enough I could hear what they were saying. I said, "I knew when you left."
Did any men get killed in the camp while you were there?
Well, I heard of it. I seen one or two got shot. Like I said, they reached down for an old rotten onion or something along the road, and that's generally the younger guards is the one that done it.
How were they buried and by whom? Did they give them back to you to bury, or did the Germans?
They took them out to the cemetery. Now, I never actually seen this, but all I got was a report back. They take them back and they put them in a box, and somehow or other our boys come up with some kind of American flag. I didn't know whether the Germans would go for that or not, but they let them go ahead and have their funeral. They stayed back when the guys performed their funeral service. And that's how I found out about that badge there, what they did with it. And I think one of them German guards told me that they took pictures and sent that other half back to the family. That's the way they're supposed to do it, but whether they did it or not, I don't know.
What did you do for clothing and blankets when those you possessed at the time of your capture wore out?
That's it. What you had, that was it.
Were there any recreational facilities for you at the camp?
Yeah.
What about any religious services? Could you conduct them in the camp or anything with the Germans?
I never seen any or heard of any.
About how long were you in the camp before you were liberated?
Well, I was in those two camps. Might have been a month out of the 4. The rest of the time, I was on the road walking every day.
Was that right?
They'd walk us till we get up, you'd see the line over here, they'd turn around and walk you back to another line. Just kept you on the move. They hauled us in them cattle cars a few times, transporting, but going long distance. But that's, I don't know whether you know what a cattle car is. It's slack,
Sure.
open box cars. And all you had in there was standing room on. They had a half of a burrow sat right there by the doors, and that was your bathroom. You had no blankets, nothing to keep you warm. Just what you had on.
What about the organization of the camps? Did the enemy guards do it, or was it shared with your own men, or did they force your men to act as overseers of fellow Americans, or?
We just had guys in charge, or I'd say a group. I had a piece of paper. I think I had 7 guys that come with me to get the ration whenever we got any. And that's the way I don't know who decided that, but that's the way it was done. Rather than everybody fighting and scrambling.
Do you think any of the American POWs collaborated with the enemy guards to gain favors?
Well, I don't know it to be a fact, but I would say yes. Probably had been.
If collaboration would have been discovered, what do you think would have happened to those Americans or those POWs?
They'd have been stuck out there like that. And if they done anything else, their own guys would have worked them over.
Was there any kind of compulsory exercise programs they had there? Or walking was enough to...
Well, that was on that, because it's hard to tell how many miles you drug yourself. And then while you was walking, you had to watch being strafed by planes and stuff, or people.
Were there any, do you remember any instances of being strafed by planes coming down?
I think 1 or 2 times we had to run for out in the fields and hit the ground. But I'd seen other places, with what clothing and stuff a lot of them had. Of course, the bodies were all gone, but we knew what had happened because we could see it and tell. We'd seen a few places like that.
Tell me, Verner, what were the guards like that was over your camp?
Well, I don't know because I didn't get that close to the guards over camp, but the guards we had with us when we were walking, we always had a young one kind of in charge, and he's a snotty acting little character. And the one that was close to me was an older guy, I'd say probably in his late 60s or maybe 70. And he could talk well enough that I could understand him. And he wouldn't look at you talk. He'd always do it when it's dark, where they couldn't see him. He says, they're watching me. And he says, least I can do is get the news for you. And I tell you every morning, then you can tell your buddies. And he'd walk there looking straight ahead with his rifle on his shoulder. And he always got the news for us. And I'd tell the guys, they said, where are you getting that news? I said, never mind, that's what it is. But he'd read the papers and listen to the radio at night and give us the information.
Do you ever remember any acts of kindness from any of the guards who lived over?
That's the only kindness I got from any of them I know of. But there had been a few people along the road that tried to give you an apple or something, but you didn't get it. Because them other smart aleck guards wouldn't let it happen. They'd take it themselves.
Did men ever trade any objects they had for things from the Germans? Or?
Well, I never seen it, but no doubt about it what they didn't. Trying to get something to eat or something.
Were POWs from other nations in the same area with you? And if so, was it possible to make contact with them? And how did you get along with them?
I was on it with like I say, some of them British for just a short while held us up in an old brick factory. And I got to pointed to one. He was an older guy. He's in the British Army. He was from Orange Free State, South Africa. That sound right? Well, anyhow, it looked, the area looked something like it did back in the Model T 4 days here, but he was in the British Army. And got acquainted well enough with him. I got a few cards from him after I got back home. But as a whole, if we was in an area going to stay in a town or something, they'd put them in one group, us in another group. They'd never mix us in together.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Any idea why they did that?
No, I don't. I never heard.
Verner, what was a typical day like in your camp, and what time did you get up, and what activities did you do all day, and what time did you go to bed at night? Just a typical day at the camp.
You just catnapped. Because you had to keep an eye open and see what's going on. You didn't know what's liable to happen to you. And as far as moving around, you didn't move around any. Maybe two or three guys get together and talk or something, but they was watching you. Figured you was going to try to do something. So you just kind of stayed off and mind your own business, and not do too much talking or anything.
Was there one centralized commander of the camp that you ever saw?
Nah, once in a while some German officer would come in there, tertiary guards, and start hollering, and maybe they were like it might be looking for an Air Force guy or something. Mm-hmm. One time they did that, and where we were at, that must have been in that 8A camp, because there's a bunch of big rooms, and they'd have a group in here and a group in there. Well, we'd move that Air Force guy. Air Force had probably bombed the town right here close, see. So they're going to get an Air Force guy. They got one in prison, take him out and shoot him. That's the way they did. Whatever happened, well, that's the way it went. They would keep moving around, try so they couldn't find them.
Did you do things like that to confuse or to disrupt the Germans on a continual basis?
Well,
you play games with them just to...
Could, yeah. Yeah, we've had guys we'd move around like that, keep them safe. Of course, us, we all the infantry, they don't bother that. If somebody's bombing or doing something extra, well, that's kind of unordinary, so they'd go get them, we'll do away with them. We've got tertiary in here or something, they'd start hunting. But we saved a few of them's hide like that.
How well did the POWs maintain their own military discipline and morale?
Well, most of them done pretty good.
Did you have a roll call or everything where you kept people?
No.
Who were the leaders in your group or in your camp, and how did they emerge as the leaders? Were they chosen, or did they do it on?
That I don't have any idea how it was done. That was the only time I knew there's any groups or anything that's actually going on is when they had that little ration thing set up.
Were there any work details ever assigned to your group?
Not mine, because see, I was separated. We were all non-coms.
Okay. Did you have to do any work detail? Were there any of the non-coms in your group, or were you the only one where you separated from the rest of your men?
Oh no, there's a bunch of them. I don't know what outfits they come from or nothing else. But.
Had you run into any POWs that had been there for a long time, such as maybe from the North African campaign or Italy, or were you basically, was all the men you were around, were they all from the invasion front area?
Most of them was, yeah. Like I say, that there, probably that guy from British, he probably come up from the other way. but we didn't get a chance to talk too much about that. Just found out where one another was from and how long they'd been there and what have you.
So you were taken prisoner in December of 1944. Tell me about the day in which you were liberated from the camp.
Well, we were on the road walking when we got liberated. We'd stopped, held up in this little town. They said we didn't have no ration, bread ration. So they was going to have a civilian bakery bake some bread for us. I knew that they still had that green bread on a little wagon there. But, and then this town, there's a bunch of tanks and German troops sitting all around there. Of course, we was in the barn right across the street from them, and we was watching to see what was going on. Well, come about noon, well, we got a chunk of that civilian type bread. That's bad, just like living on the king then. And then they said, well, they didn't bake enough, we had to wait another day. After a day or two of that, I began to wonder what's going on. Next day, we got a boiled potato with our bread.
Is that really the first?
Yeah. I said, now, boy, something's really going on here. And I don't know, 2 or 3 days of that. And, let's see. Yeah, they moved me down to that building with the sick for a day or two. And then they brought me back up to that barn with the rest of the guys. 2 guys kind of helped me around. And I crawled up to that next morning, I looked, and I said, hey boys, come here. Them tanks and the troops are all gone. They moved out at night, we didn't hear them. And they said, well, how'd they get out here and we didn't hear them? I said, no, but they're gone. I said, I don't see nothing in sight nowhere. Well, I see the guard down there and one there and one up here. So we got more bread and more potatoes. And the next go around, why, here come this little smart German corporal back up to the barn where I was at. He said he'd come back and bid goodbye. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I said goodbye. I said, you lying to me again? And give him a few harsh words. No, he said, I see you. He said, when I get down that corner, your people will be here. I said, yeah, you're crazy too. So, there's more guys that come out and told him what he said. I don't believe that. I said, I don't either, but I said, we'll watch. And about the time he rounded the corner, here come a Jeep around the corner. It was one of ours. Well, then the guards ran out and gave up. They took him back over somewhere. I don't know where they took him. And then pretty soon some of the tanks come through with the troops on them, going through there. They was moving.
What was your reaction when you saw that?
I said, Jesus. So we done a little talking. Pretty soon that Jeep come up there to, I don't know whether he was a major or colonel or what he was. He looked at me and he says, Jesus Christ, I never seen nothing like this. I said, you never liberated any prisoners of war before? No, you're the first ones. He said, I don't believe it.
You've lost a considerable amount of weight.
Oh, I was ragtag. Yeah, I was skinny as a fence rail. And of course, like I said, my breeches was all open, just fastened around me. And he says, oh, I can't believe that. He says, we're on the move. He says, the infantry's on the tanks. He says, we're moving so fast. He said, least I can do is send my Jeep driver back to get you some supplies and get you some transportation and help up here. He says, is there any more? I said, yeah. Down the other end of town there's a group of English. So they went down to check on them. Then they come back. He said, well, I'm going to have to get going. I'll send my driver back. Well, the driver talked to him a while. And he said, well, I don't believe this. And he gave me a knife that he had and told me to keep it. And he said, well, I better get going. And so me and these two guys helped me. We went down there for the traffic going through. And I said, I want some louse powder, cigarettes, and some clean socks. So we got them. We headed back, started hunting something to eat then. The guy says, what do you want on that louse powder? I said, I'm so damn lousy, it's eating me up. Raised up shirt collar, just lined with lice eggs and bugs growing. I said, I'm going to get rid of them suckers. Boy, I doused down good. And them guys started hunting something to eat. Well, we eat and run away and died.
So this was, you were captured on December 20th, is that right?
Mhm.
So that's 12 days from today. It'll be 50 years you were captured. And do you remember the date in which you were liberated?
April 18th, I believe it was.
April 18th?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So we're getting close to the end of the war. Were there any special celebrations you and the men you were with that you had?
No.
It had to be quite an emotional experience.
Yeah. Well, everybody's so daggone weak they couldn't hardly do anything, but as getting around to getting some food, first thing you want to do is go take care of them guards. It says, you guys are done. Not if I get my hands on a gun. They says, yep. Says, any of them do anything to you? One guy said, that never did. He said, okay, I'll take care of that. And they stripped them down, but they wouldn't let us get around them. They took them off somewhere else. But I think we had to wait about the next day to get transportation back, and they took us down around and up to a big house or building up there. Well, that's all I remember. Went in the hallway to get the transportation. I went down. I was done. I come to, I was in a tent hospital someplace. When I finally come around, I didn't have no clothes on. I was raising heck about my junk I had with me. The guy, corporal, come over there and he says, man, he said, your stuff's in a little bag tied right there to your cot. I said, where's my clothes? He said, we burn them. He said, that's lousy things. I said, yeah, well, I knew that. There's lice. He said, we had to get rid of them. He said, I didn't know whether you was going to come around or not. He never did tell me how long it was out.
Did you have any contact with enemy civilians while you lived over there?
No. And sometimes they'd stand out there when we were going by and try to give us an apple or something.
Yeah.
The guard wouldn't let us get it.
Well, tell me in sequence how you got back to the United States after you were released as a POW.
All right. Like I tell you, I come to in that there tent hospital. I don't know where it was at, whether in France or Germany. And I think the next day after I come to, they put me in an ambulance and hauled me somewhere in France in a civilian type hospital. I was up on the second or third floor. There was this one big room, and there was a nurse and two GIs in there. And they, of course, they brought me in. It was nighttime. It was after chow, anyhow. And they brought me in there and put me in there. And they kept looking at me and says, I'm hungry. I said, well, the chow's been over with for a while. I said, I want something to eat. One guy said, well, he scratched his head and I said, go see what I can find for you. So he went, and I think he come back with a hot dog or two and something else, something to drink. Man, I wolfed that down, and that nurse said, I don't think you ought to be eating that stuff. I said, I'm hungry. I said, I want something to eat. Other guy, he was took off and he'd come back. I don't know what he had, but I got rid of it. I feel a little better, so I curled up in bed. They said, if you need anything, we'll be right here with you. You're our man. You mean, I said, I'm the only one in here? Yep. I said, have you ever had any PWs before? No. You're the first one. We don't know what to do. So I think the next day, they took me out of there and put me on a hospital plane. Took me in an ambulance somewhere, put me on them old C-47 planes, sitting out there, oil dripping all over, quivering and shaking. Flew across the channel back over to Southampton, to Army Hospital. Going over that channel, there's a heck of an air current on it. And I was right by the window where I could see out there and see that wing, look down there in the water and say, hey, I'll just turn my back there and go to sleep. It's the only way I could stand the ride.
I could believe that.
And then they took me in there to that hospital and put me in bed. And see, that must be, that had to be getting along last April, 1st of May. Thanks or not. Anyhow, they thought we wasn't smart enough to get through them. No problem, we go through, the empty went through, and then they called the engineers with their dump trucks and dumped dirt on them, drove right over the top of them.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's concrete posts up about like that, pointed, and they had them staggered. Oh, I'd say probably 50-foot wide strip. They went clear around through that whole area.
That's how you got over the Siegfried line?
Yeah.
Huh.
I called engineers, and you know, some of these dumb boys, you know, like me, said, well, there's no problem, just fill up dirt and drive over top of it. So that's what they did.
And that worked, huh?
Sure it worked. And another time when they had a lot of these here mines and stuff, where they mine the road or pathway where he's going to go, where the tanks go, well, they're having trouble getting around them mines. And so some of the old plow boys says, why don't you rig up a reel out on front of that tank, like you do on a combine or something, put some heavy chains on it and let around, slap that ground and set them off. That's what they did.
Is that right? Huh.
Yeah.
Well, how and when was your first contact with your family? You know, after
With my
you-
family, well, that was a long ways yet.
Well, if that happened later, tell me about your on your way to England, back to Southampton. That's where we picked up, or we left.
Well,
off.
we come across the Channel of the Plain, and that's where we got to Southampton, the hospital. Then we went in there, in the hospital, of course, I was in bed, rack of bones. They started to give me blood plasma, feed me veins, vitamin pills. I fed us 5 meals a day now, mind you.
My.
3 full meals and 2 partials, as well as all these here vitamin shots or vitamin pills and shots, 2 yarn shots, and a big shot glass full of all kinds of vitamin pills. They poured that in us. And see, my birthday is on May the 6th. Well, the nurses in the ward was going to have a birthday party for me. And that morning, the guy sitting there talking to me, and he says, what's the matter with you, Sarge? I said, well, I don't know, but I think my temperature's going up. And he talked a little bit, and he says, you stay right there. Well, I couldn't get up anyhow. He said, you stay right there, I'll go get the colonel. He took off his house coat flopping. Boy, here come that colonel and a head nurse. They come in there and checked me, and he says, my gosh, your temperature's way up there. Put him in that private room. Shot of penicillin every 2 hours around the clock and don't miss a shot. Well, they told them to always wake me up. They didn't know I was a prisoner. Well, after a few shots, you know, I was skin and bones anyhow, poking old tough skin. Some whack come in there one night, gave me a shot, and he jabbed me and didn't wake me up. I just about tore the room up. And I don't know where the officer was, but he was there just a short order. Don't ever give that guy a shot without waking him up. I told you that. Well, why? Don't you know where he'd been? No, he'd been a prisoner. Wake him up. He's liable to kill you. I stayed in there, I don't know how long I stayed in that room, but I didn't get my birthday party.
You did?
I didn't.
You didn't?
Because I was in that private room there getting shots. No, I went clear out of it.
Tell me about your contact with your family, about that, when they found out that, they had to be kind of in a shock when they found out that you were taken prisoner, probably had no idea.
They got one of these telegrams that was missing in action. And I was on my way back. And a day or two later, they got the one where I was prisoner of war. And they thought I was dead, but they tried to write, but nothing got there. One of the pictures, one of them letters. But I really, well, yes. Red Cross come around and wanted to know if they could send a telegram home to tell my folks where I was at. I said, yeah. A week later, they come around and done me for the telegram.
They came what?
Come around and done me to pay them for that telegram. That's the Red Cross. I says, pay you? I says, that's what you're getting paid for. Same with cigarettes. They'd sell you cigarettes as donated by so-and-so. You'd see it right on the package, say, donated to a certain Legion club or a certain other club, donated, and they'd charge you for it.
A number of people have hard feelings against the Red Cross. My dad was one of them. My dad didn't like the idea of being the Red Cross coming up to the front and selling all the guys coffee. He said, I had no money.
No, we didn't have no money.
It's my dad's story. My dad was in the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
Do you feel like maybe you suffered or have been affected, or do you have any long-term effects or problems that are associated with your POW experience?
Sure. I've been running up there to VA hospital for the last 2 years. 2 and 3 times a month.
What do you think? What is the problem?
My feet, legs, joints, spine. I've had pulse state. I had cancer on my back. Nerves are shot. See, they wanted to call it nerves. But it's it's caused from your nerves, but that's I don't know what to call it.
Post-traumatic shock or
trauma or something. Yeah, they don't want to say that because they have to give you a little more disability. I started out, I went up about 3 times, 3 years in a row when I got out. And same old story every time I went up there. But they'd go back the day of discharge and give me 10% on neurosis. That's on my nerves. No questions. But when they said no questions, I began to wonder what's going on. But I never could find out anybody that could tell me anything until about the last 2 years. And I got in contact with a service officer at VFW, and we were talking one day, and he said, Jesus Christ, man, you PW, you should be getting more than that. So he come down, and I pulled the papers out of it. He said, we're filing forms right now. And I'm up 50% now.
That's great.
But here a while back, I wheeled me in a wheelchair up there, and I went in and got therapy for 3 weeks and got back on my feet. But they sent me to Indianapolis, they x-rayed, and of course they did that up there. And they're treating me pretty good. But got a doctor up there who says all POW should be 100% because they all got something wrong with them. And he's been working on them.
Do you ever have nightmares or dreams about
We don't. That's the reason I've seen that one doctor up there. First time I went up there to him, one of the other guys said, in this club that I got. He says, go up there and see him, get more paperwork, get your files bigger. So Ruth went with me. She always goes with me. She takes me up most of the time. And we went in and sat down and talked to this doctor, and he just asked me a few questions. He asked her some questions, and he says, no more than I've talked to you. You're worse than any Vietnam veteran I've had. I said, what are you talking about? He says, you don't notice it, but I do. And he's been working with me ever since. He said, I'm here to help you. And she asked him one day, said, was you in the service? He says, I most certainly was. My father was. Okay, because most of them people are not. They're all foreigners. He says, I'm here to help you, and I'm going to help you. I said, how about getting my nerves settled out? He said, we're taking care of one thing at a time.
How has the POW experience affected your life today?
Well, I don't know. I don't like being around big groups of people. I'll get away from them. And people don't believe anything you say anyhow. But we'd never talk about it. Just like I said, had to go make a living for your family and have a place that was nobody's going to take care of you. But now it's time to get some care taken.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just like I say, that would affect a lot of it, not going around groups of people. I don't even like to go to a family reunion or nothing. I'll go and stay out around the edge and talk to somebody. That's about the side of it.
Has your attitude about war and POW life changed in the last 50 years?
Well, I don't really know. Can't blame them people who is fighting. It's all political, to my notion. It's all the big money people's. It's all for their gain, and we're the goats.
What do you think it's taken so long for the average POW to organize and to speak out about his experience?
Well, as people starting to work on them, asking questions, they want to find out. Because they know something happened, but they don't have any way of finding out. And they're not teaching history anymore. They didn't want the people to know what was going on. That falls back to another thing. When this group that liberated us, there was a guy who found out I was from Illinois, and he was a lieutenant, and he asked if he could take my picture. I said, I don't mind. I said, what are you going to do with it? He said, I'm going to send it back home to Chicago and have it put in the Sun Times so people can see what's going on. Well, before he got his job done, there's another big brass that says, what are you doing? He said, taking pictures of him. He said, what are you going to do? He told him the same thing. He said, no, you ain't. I'll take it away from you. He didn't want it to get back home. But Life magazine, you remember that? All those pictures that showed them skeletons and rack of people in there, that was some of us. That wasn't all them people over there. Our people looked the same way. I went through that Nuremberg place over there too, where they gassed all them people. We got close to that, you could just, something in the air just about make your hair stand straight up. Of course, we was headed for a camp, see, everybody thought. I says, this is no place for us. I said, don't you notice the difference in the air? Yeah, it's kind of weird or funny feeling. I said, I hope the heck they don't keep us here. This is no place for us. Well, they marched in there and shut the gate and had us standing out there. You see a person in a window way up there, over there. You could tell it was about what it was because we'd run into a lot of that coming across fighting. They had a lot of sugar beets, and they had them sugar beet factories where they made the sugar right there, and they had big furnaces there. Time and time again, we got there, and one of them furnaces would be going, look in there, and they'd throw a bunch of people in there, burn them, see skeletons. So I know what they were doing.
It's phenomenal, experience. As you look back on your POW experience, how did it influence your life, like say career, family, health, politics, any of that?
Well, I don't know. I can see they're not wanting to help the veteran out any. After all, he's the ones went and made it safer for the people here, but they don't appreciate it. And the younger ones, they don't know anything about it because they don't want them to know. When I was a kid, we had a neighbor that was in World War I, and had another one that had something to do with those carrier pigeons. And we'd visit with them. Well, they'd sit there and tell us some stories and stuff, and that interested us as kids. Of course, we had history when we went to school too, but by what they was telling us and what we read in the history books and stuff, we knew what it all was. We knew we didn't want none of it.
Well, tell me, how did you learn about the end of the war, and what was your reaction to it?
Let's see, where was I at? I was home on convalescent leave. I don't know whether that's when it ended with Japan or not. That was in 45.
Would have been, the war in Europe would have ended in late April, early May 45, and then I believe it's August 1945 is when they dropped the bomb. And what was your reaction to it when they dropped the bomb on Japan?
Well, I tell you, I was flat on my ass in bed sick. I couldn't get out and do any celebrating. But everybody else in the town, all the bells and all that, right? I was laying flat. They were home sick. I was up with my folks. And he was asking about contacting my family. When I first come home from, I was up to Fort Custer, Michigan, convalescent. And they give me a 90, well, it turned out to be 92-day convalescent leave home. And I walked up on the porch at my mother's house and knocked on the door. She says, "Can I do something for you?" She didn't even know who it was.
Didn't recognize you.
I said, "Oh, that's pretty good. You come home and they don't ask you in." And she called my name and says, "Is that you?" I said, "Well, I guess it is. I'm here." "Well, how'd you get here?" "I just come home on my own." People around town didn't even know it was around. Yeah. But I've heard several of them say, "Well, if your name's so-and-so," they had the high school band and the fire truck out and have a little parade for you. But no, I said it's the same way for me. I come in and I left. People don't even know where I've been or what I've done or nothing.
You were under some unbelievable experiences.
Yeah.
And, they had to be.
People don't believe it.
Verner, I want to ask you one question. Can you list the military campaigns you participated in, and maybe any of the decorations you received for those campaigns?
Or that.
I have a map here. I was looking at that.
Yeah, I've got all kinds of stuff. Yeah, here's one. This is leading up to it. It's about those prisoners I said we had and everything. Here's one trouble I have to run the bathroom ever.
It's all right. I'm going to read this. This is a commendation for meritorious service for Company E, 12th Infantry.
Right.
On September 15, 1945, the attack of the 2nd Battalion, 12th Infantry, was temporarily halted by heavy enemy small arms and artillery fire on the road running northeast about 3,000 yards southeast of Schlossenbacher, Germany. In order to cut off the retreat of the enemy forces, Company E, 12th Infantry, was ordered to flank the enemy position and move to a point about 1,500 yards in the rear of the enemy line. Immediately sensing the technical situation, Lieutenant Martin A. Mandermid, the company commander, quickly and efficiently issued the necessary order, and with the maximum speed, the company moved forward towards its objective. In spite of heavy enemy fire, The company forced its way to the objective and quickly deployed and took a favorable position. All during that day and night, the greater part of the next day, the men of Company E engaged the enemy with every available weapon, thereby succeeding in inflicting many casualties, including approximately 30 killed, 50 wounded, and 75 prisoners. Each and every member of the company performed his assigned task in a most courageous and outstanding manner. And late in the afternoon of September 16, 1944, the company was relieved by the use of tanks and infantry. In spite of the grueling hardships which they had undergone, the morale of the men was high and their courage undaunted. The division commander takes extreme pleasure in hereby commending each and every member of Company E, 12th Infantry, for the bravery, courage, and resourcefulness each displayed in the heavily successful accomplishment of the most difficult and hazardous mission. This is Brigadier General Van Fleet, and it's signed here by Richard S. Marr, Colonel, General Staff Corps, Chief of Staff.
And that's what that's for right there.
That's what your Bronze Star is for.
That's right.
We're looking at a case here with the number of decorations, your dog tag, Bronze Star, your it's the American campaign, and
Yeah.
the theater, European theater,
This is the prisoner award,
prisoner war badge, and then World War
victory
II,
medal, and then this is good conduct
good
medal.
conduct. And then also we have
prison dog
your
tag,
prison dog tags.
combat anthem badge, and that's a rifle. You got to be in combat to get this with this region out here.
Right.
And that's what ruptured duck that everybody talks about. That's your discharge patch. This is the summer stripes, and that's the winter stripes. This was the 75th Division I started out in, and that's 4th Division that I was in.
Where'd you get this made up in?
I made it up myself.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. I got it all done and tightened and then cracked it, so I'm gonna have to make another. I even made the case and everything.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a...
There's another thing I was gonna say there about that lieutenant there.
Mm-hmm.
He went across when I did as a replacement. I spied this officer. He had a little white baby shoe on his pack strap, and I watched him. And he ended up as my company commander as replacement.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What are some of the other documents you had there?
Okay. That's something about that Bronze Star too.
Adjutant General awarding you the Bronze Star for exemplary conduct in ground combat against the enemy on 11th of July 1944.
And well, that's about some of the medals and stuff.
Okay.
See, when I was over in England Hospital, they tried to take a bunch of my stuff away from me. They wasn't going to send me back to States. They was going to send me to Japan. I couldn't even walk. And I says, ain't no way you can keep me. I'm going back to States. I looked all over for my picture of the hospital ship it came back on. I've got it somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
So there's one silver star for the Normandy, Northern Europe, Rhineland, Ardennes, and Central Europe.
You see?
In fact, I need to write that
See
down.
right here? See that little silver star?
Yeah.
That's for 5 major battle zones. Otherwise, you get a bronze one for each battle zone you were in. I've got all the papers for my stuff, so I'm not telling no tales on any of it.
Verner, do you remember seeing any SS troops while you were over there?
Hey, yes, I've run into them. They all look alike, and that's at their Hitler's youth gang. They was raised up, and they was taught nothing but that. They was taught there wouldn't be no prisoners taken. Well, the last bunch we run into, we had a little problem. Our BAR man got a little nervous because we knew that that's what they were, and he shot. And our officer said, we're going to take some of these prisoners. They're taught to there won't be any taken. So we captured some of them. Well, then all of them you could capture because they seen they wasn't going to be shot. But boy, they all just looked the same. Blonde head, blue eyes, built husky. They were fighters. But we took them on anyhow. It didn't bother us. We'd take on anything. And see, here's that 8A I was talking about. It's right there from the government quarters. See there? Solid 8A. Well, everybody said they can't find 8A. But there it is, comes from government. Well, here you can see a little bit right here what I look like. That's a little bit what it looked like when I come home. Skinny defense rail.
Yeah. Boy, and you probably put on a few pounds the time you were, this is after you put on a few pounds too.
Yeah,
isn't it?
sure. This boy here always hung around with me. He was our platoon runner, and he's an artist.
Huh.
And the first time home, we took him, that's me back there. We took them pictures behind a block building. We captured German and had a camera and roll film, so we took him and seen somebody from Signal Corps. We asked him if he could develop them. He said, yeah. I said, I doubt we'll ever see him. But they kept all the equipment, but they sent us back a picture piece.
Right?
And I carried that all the way through with me. That's all I had left in the billfold picture. But that is stuck on back of another family picture, and the Germans didn't find it.
Huh.
Anything that pertained, that showed any army equipment or anything, they'd take away from it. I didn't even know she stuck that in there. I took that out of my billfold a while back because it was pretty well weathered and carried it for so long. Let's see what is this here. Something about my case. I don't know. Oh, it's want to get me the 10%. And that's about the Prisoner of War Medal. Secretary of the Army. Here's some of my group from the 75th Division down there at Fort Leonard Wood. This group of guys was in my barracks. And this is me as a full field pack down there in Missouri, was out on bivouac. And that's one of the letters my folks sent to me to that 8A camp, but I never did get it. That's the only thing. And these two cards here, the government would give us $1 a day for each day we was in prison camp. And you ought to heard the taxpayers holler. I had to straighten a few people out. I said, you don't know what you're talking about that. You taxpayers not paying 1 red cent of that. I said, you don't even know where that money comes from. I do. It comes from captured funds over across the pond. And so that's what they did with it. Give prisoners $1 a day.
Is that right? Is that
Yeah.
how they did that?
That's what was explained to me. And also I told him, I said, I'll pay you $1 a day out of my pocket. I stay home and keep your good paying job and see how you
No
like it.
kidding.
Oh, no. I said, well, keep your mouth shut. I don't want to hear no more. Let's see this here. Letter of service officer. And you can read it instead.
So this is, this acknowledges that you were a prisoner of war.
Yeah. All right, here's some hospital, yeah. Here's some of the newspaper clippings, like I said, for grew up on, and then here's where liberated prisoners wore my name on there. This is a list that went when I did. And here's some of the telegrams. I didn't throw nothing, man.
I think it's great that
I filed a claim there, and see, I dropped my first sergeant's pay just before we got cut off, and didn't get a chance to send it home, so I filed a claim, and he gave me some money. I wanted to know why I had so much money on me. I said I dropped my first pay, couldn't send it home, and what's extra was what I had left over from what I sent home. I got $92 for being sergeant. That's with overseas pay, that's what it was.
you were rolling the dough at that time.
Oh, man was I. Here. That's my dental records and stuff. I didn't throw nothing away.
I think it's great that you held on to this. I think so many people.
Now the guy says, where'd you get it? That's Joe Zimmerman that was prisoner of war then. He said, you still got your prison tag or your dog tags? He said, I said, yeah, I got my dog tag, I got my prison tag too. He said, I have too.
Does he live in town here?
Yeah, but he's leaving tomorrow. He'll be back in about 4 or 5 days. He's going down to Texas to see his grandkids and have his Christmas with them. I talked to him a while ago, just before I came home. But he was one of those guys that the doctor up there said there was a guy was a prisoner of war in your area, and I would like for him to talk to you. I said, well, I just have to figure out who. There ain't very many around here. So I just run into him at the VFW one day and we talked a little bit. He said, I don't know how to talk about it. I said, well, nobody does. Nobody believes you. And we talked a little bit, and he started getting a little interested. And he happened to be the guy, but they wouldn't tell me.
Was that right?
So when I went back up to my appointment with the two doctors, I said, I talked to a POW the other day, and I said, he didn't want to talk too much, but I said, he started opening up, and we got to talking, and he said, I want to talk to you some more. I said, fine. And that one doctor said, I didn't tell you what nobody's name was. I said, you didn't have to. I said, it didn't take me long to figure it out. Well, let's see here.
I wonder if Mr. Zimmerman would be interested in talking with me sometime.
He might be. Now, see, he didn't want to say anything or do anything. He was kind of an odd duck at the time. Here's some coins that I brought back with us. You can see the one that's German and one's English.